Today I'm turning tradition on its head. We have taught for the last century that this sonnet is about beauty and splendours that exist for fleeting moments before they are destroyed by time leading to death, suggesting the man be kept alive through procreation or through poetic devices. But it's so much more than that. Having discovered the real source documents used by the poet, I'll reveal what it really means. Welcome to this lecture. I'm Peter Matthews. My guest is again Luke Ranieri, reading in OP. Take it away, Luke.
When I consider everything that grows holds in perfection but a little moment, that this huge stage presenteth naught but shows whereon the stars in sacred influence comment. When I perceive that men as plants increase, jeered and checked in by the selfsame sky, vaunt and their youthful sap, at I decrease, and wear their brave state out of memory. Then the conceit to this inconstant state sets you most rich in youth before me sight, where wastful time debateth with decay, to change your day, a youth to sullied night. And all in war with time for love of you, as he takes from you, I engraft you new.
The opening verses, when I consider everything that grows, holds in perfection but a little moment, refers to Psalm 8:1, where King David sung, O Lord, your majestic name fills the earth. Your glory is higher than the heavens. Then we read in Genesis 1:26, where Elohim, or God, said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. Man was perfect for a little moment. For it is written, what are mere mortals that you should think about them, human beings that you should care for them. Yet you made them only a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honour. Psalms 8:4-5. Make sure you watch my other video on what happens when we ascend, because it does connect to this sonnet. The Hebrew letter Samek represents 15 in Jewish Kabbalah, though Yah, which is the Yod and the He, also add up to 15 in Hebrew Gematria. Thus, it is the perfect sonnet for Emilia to introduce Adam, a little lower than God. For Yah is the name of God, which implies salvation, healing, redemption, and ascending to the fullness of God, like the light of the full moon of Adonai that we discussed in previous sonnets. The letter Samek also represents the archangel Michael, who sustains Israel. For it is written, no one helps me against these spirit princes except Michael, your spirit prince. Daniel 10:21. You will come to learn through the sonnets that Emilia believed that the archangel Michael has a connection to Jesus. Yes, there were a lot of views in the Middle Ages and after the Renaissance that still hung on. And it is early Jewish Kabbalah that this comes from. Therefore, as you read this sonnet, understand it with this interpretation. How can we then fathom Emilia's next verse that holds our next secret code? And the verse goes, that this huge stage presenteth naught, but shows whereon the stars in secret influence comment. The secret code here is stage in Salve, Deus Rex Judaeorum. And I'll read that for you now. Yet this rare phoenix, or that worn-out age, this great majestic queen comes short of thee, who to an earthly prince did then engage her heart's desires, her love, her liberty, acting her glorious part upon a stage of weakness, frailty, and infirmity, guiding all honour to a creature due to her Creator, whom she never knew. This rare phoenix that she's talking about here is Shekinah, with her train of angels, often called Matronita in Jewish Kabbalah and the Zohar and the Zohar Adash, and Adonai in times of judgment. So that's the difference. The creator is, of course, Elohim, the name God, and the creature in this story is not Adam. It is, I don't like pronouncing this word, but I suppose I have to. It is Lilith, from the rose lily, genus Lilium in Latin, who is introduced in Zohar Adash, Midrash Anilan 16b, where the Blessed Holy One and the earth came together to create the two of them. That's the quote. For the three to become partners. What's this talking about? It's talking about Adam, Lilith, and the Blessed Holy One. Hence Emilia's depiction of increase. When I perceive that men as plants increase, cheered and checked even by the self-same sky, speaking figuratively of heaven, earth, and the Blessed Holy One. Now, it is far more than the creation of Adam, for when Elohim said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky," Genesis 1:20. The phrase "let birds fly" refers to the creation of the Archangel Michael, which is depicted by some Christians and as Christ, particularly in Catholic theology, where it is recorded, "Then one of the seraphim flew to me," Isaiah 6:6. Gabriel, we know, was one who was seen in a vision by Daniel, who caused to fly swiftly to him, Daniel 9:21. Now the archangel Sandalphon, who was allegedly the ascended Elijah. And this is why I want you to watch the other one, because this was a belief. Now Sandalphon, and I'll continue through with this, but Sandalphon is the largest archangel in amongst them all. And he stands behind the Lord and protects him from any attack from behind. And the Jewish Kabbalists believe that he is or some of them believe that he is the ascended Elijah. So I'll leave that there and let you watch the other video and let you decide for yourself what you believe. So the archangel Sandalphon flies through the skies as a bird, it says. The angel of death, Satan, and his emissaries of judgment, as darkness was over the surface of the waters, Genesis 1:2. And the Leviathans, mentioned in there as well, are the sea serpents. And this is the time of creation where all these things are happening. The archangel Uriel, prince of lights, He presides over all darkness and gave Kabbalah to mankind. Yep, that's where Kabbalah comes from. And there's also the angel Raziel, which we will discuss in later sonnets, because he also spoke to mankind. And there is a series of books on it, which I previously mentioned. Now, we are told that every soul of the living being that moves, speaking of every living thing that scurries and swarms in the water, and every sort of bird, each producing offspring of the same kind. And this is from Genesis 1:21. They are called a nation, connected and unique on earth, which is Israel. That's what the Zohar tries to tell us, where we are all part of the collection consciousness of her, H-E-R. In other words, figuratively speaking of the Sephira of Keter in the Tree of Life, and figuratively of Israel as a nation, as a people, descendants of Jacob. Now, as Rabbi Yitzchak explains, the neshama Elohim bestows into these bodies cleaves to the animal soul of mankind, for it is written, people, despite their wealth, do not endure. They are like the beasts that perish. Psalm 49:12. So, therefore, we can look into the verse, vaunt in their youthful sap, at height decrease, and were their brave state out of memory. For the body, that's from the Sonnets, for the body returns to dust, but the Neshama soul is never destroyed. This is the holy divine soul that is connected to the collection consciousness of Keter. In other words, the top of the tree of life. It's a connection to God himself. So Zohar Dash Midrash Yonelim 16c teaches that Adam and Lilith were created together, which is from Genesis 5:2. She was the original Eve, though she had, this is from the sonnet, the conceit or egotism of this inconstant or unfaithful stay, for she was a spiteful soul. Emilia speaks of Adam as being Israel with a neshama before the Blessed Holy One, and goes to the sonnet, sets you most rich in youth before my sight, where Rabbi Akiva weeps for the prolonged exile of Israel before Christ is to return on the 6th day in the 6th millennium. What does this mean? And this is referring to the sonnet, to change your day of youth to sullied night. Well, the Hebrew year 6000 will begin on sunset the 29th of September, 2239 AD. Thus, we have around 214 years remaining in this millennium. Rabbi Akiva forecasts that Christ will return on or after the 5th of October 2239. But Zohar 1:117a tells us Christ must return in the next 214 years at the latest. And it reads, in the 600th year of the 6000, the gates of wisdom on high and the well springs of lower wisdom will be opened. This will prepare the world to enter the 7th thousand, just as man prepares himself towards sunset on Friday for the Shabbat or the Sabbath. Because the Jewish Sabbath or Shabbat is on Saturday. It's not on Sunday as Christians celebrate. This was influenced by the Roman Church. The early Christian church did celebrate it on Saturday. As Emilia tells us in the latter part of the sonnets, we must prepare ourselves for the wedding feast of the Lamb and must be ready at all times. As we discussed in earlier sonnets, the redemption of Israel is through the Hebrew letter Vav. In the 6th millennium, when Christ returns to usher in the Messianic age, during Shabbat, while Yud-He-Vav-He rests, it is the luminaries of fire, which I discussed in the previous sonnet, who rule on Shabbat. After the blessing is recited over the Holy Lamb. As we learnt in Sonnet 5, the Holy Lamb is Adonai, figuratively the moon, but it's also a piece of jewelry owned by Antonio Bassano. It was made as a gift for his wife, Elena Bassano. And I mentioned that in Sonnet 5. Now, this holy lamp of Adonai plugs into Yud-He-Vav-He, or Shekinah, figuratively of the sun. In this part, Emilia connected the age of the woman to the end of days, as prophesied by Emilia Bassano over 400 years ago. Rav Philip Berg from the United States described this age as the age of Aquarius, where the Messiah comes and the dead are resurrected. The Rav said, the Messiah means a total connection and also a total revealment of reality and the total removal of the physicality of the world evolution. This will be the resurrection of the dead and the desire to receive for oneself alone will be squeezed out. And what have we got left? What have we got left? See, we desire things for ourselves alone. And this is what the Rav's trying to say. What have we got left? Well, immortality. That's what we've got left when we put aside this greed, this desire to receive for ourselves. The age of the woman, knowledge, revelation, and those who have stored up the desire to receive oneself alone towards immortality and change to sharing. Immortality to one of sharing. This is the cause of longer life and immortality. Emilia tells us in the sonnet, and all in war with time for love of you. Speaking of love of Elam, love of God. Now, where does this come from? This is not a Christian usage because we don't generally discuss war with Scripture. It's actually a Jewish Essene doctrine from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, it's from the Pierced Messiah text of 4Q285. Now, the Essenes were one of the Jewish sects. They were not Pharisees. They were not Sadducees. They were, if you like, called Nazarenes, the same sect that Jesus was accused of being. Now, most scholars believe that this particular book, the Pierced Messiah text, referred to the Romans, but it's not so. If you actually extrapolate this, it's talking about, and I'll go through the text and then we'll discuss it afterwards. And this is an English translation by Robert H. Eisenman and Michael Wise. And Isaiah the prophet, the thickets of the forest will be felled with an axe, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one. A staff shall rise from the root of Jesse. We know who that is. And a planting from his roots will bear fruit. The branch of David. They will enter into judgment, and they will put to death the prince of the congregation. The branch of David, and with woundings, and the high priest will command the slain of the Kittim. Well, the slain of the Kittim refers, and it's another Dead Sea Scroll portion, it refers to the final battle between the sons of light and the sons of darkness, which the Pharisees of the time could only see through their narrow view of the Romans, though it actually remains in our future. It is actually discussing the Edomites, which I discussed in my earlier sonnets. So allow me to explain further. The Romans were not destroyed in the first century after the death of Christ. It was the Pharisees who committed Christ to die, because we know that Pilate actually washed his hands of it. It's recorded in Roman history, not just church history, Roman history, historical records by Pilate himself. Hence the reason the Temple of Jerusalem was destroyed soon after the death of Christ. Elohim entered Jerusalem, or God entered Jerusalem and inspected the sin for himself, and they crucified him. However, he knew they'd do it. He sacrificed his life for Israel. Hence the reason Emilia wrote, "As he takes from you, I engraft you new." Speaking of the Neshama soul that lives on forever. For by doing so, he gave up his life for all of us to have eternal life. Here we also celebrate the creation of Eve, as he takes from you. Talk about Adam, but also figurative of Christ and the Neshama soul. I engraft you new. What an incredible conclusion to the sonnet, with the creation of Eve with a righteous soul. It's quite incredible. It's a beautiful imagery. And we've had it wrong for over a century. You need the source documents to unravel the sonnets. Thanks for watching, and bless you all heaps.